Hello. I'm going to try this. This is a little experiment for me. I'm making a campaign diary for the Dungeons and Dragons campaign that I'm running for my son and daughter, Andrew and Kasumi. Andrew is 11 years old? Yes. Andrew's 11 years old and Kasumi's 8 years old. And I, I've tried a couple times to get them started with Dungeons and Dragons, but it never really clicked. Just recently, I why? What got them? I'm not sure why, but I've been trying to get them to play Dungeons and Dragons. I've been trying to get them interested in role playing, but they were never really into it. Recently, though, my son came to me and asked if I could play with them, and then my daughter wanted to, and so I was like, okay, it's been a couple years. They're a little bit older. Let's try again. And so we started our first campaign a couple days ago. Uh, Me being very lazy and also wanting to try something. The campaign that I'm running is basically the video game Avernum, or Exile. That's how I played it. Uh, I'm doing this because I realized that I've tried to get them to play old games that I liked, but they're not interested. The controls are too archaic. The mechanics don't work for the modern video gamer, and so I decided, you know what? They've never played these games. They don't know the source material, so I can just lift them wholesale and give it to them in a Dungeons and Dragons campaign, and they'll think it's brilliant. They'll think I'm the greatest storyteller ever. So I decided to run them through Avernum. Now I know, and this is mostly for me and for the kids too. Eventually, I'll let them watch this as we progress, so they can see the beginnings and kind of learn the way. But if anyone does watch this, Avernum is a video game series by Spiderweb Software. It came out in okay. It started out as a game called Exile: Escape from the Pit, and it was released in 1997. And I remember playing this when I was in high school, and I loved it. It was great. It was exactly what I wanted. It was this sprawling open world RPG on the computer. Very simple graphics, but it was wonderful. It was great. And there were three of them: Exile 1, Exile 2, Exile 3, and then they made Exile Blades of Exile, which is like a campaign creator. And eventually, Spiderweb Software made a new game called Avernum, and Avernum was basically just a remake of Exile with a new engine, isometric viewpoint, things like that. So I have the Avernum series on Steam from Humble Bundle, I think, and so I just kind of went into that, and I started a new game, put all the cheats in so I could just get through the story points. And then I just wrote down everything I needed to that was important for the characters. So it's not going to be exactly like Avernum, because I realized Avernum is very combat heavy, and it's designed for a party of 4 characters. And more than that, it's designed for a party of 4 characters who can save and reload. Very difficult combat, sometimes death traps. It is a game you have to save scum. You will never get through it your first time without saving and reloading. Very frequently, there will be an altar or a pool, and it'll say, do you want to drink? Do you want to pry the gems out of the statue? And you're like, well, sure, why not? And you learn to do this. You save the game and you say, yeah, sure, I'll destroy the evil altar. It's evil. It's in this place. And 9 times out of 10, you destroy the altar, and it summons like 6 demons, and your party dies. And you say, okay, I'm gonna reload my save. I'm gonna gain some levels, prep, cast all my magic beforehand. Then I'm gonna desecrate the altar, and then I'm gonna kill the demons, and then I'm gonna get treasure. That doesn't work for Dungeons and Dragons. So they will not be going through the normal Avernum campaign, like the main video game storyline. That's just not going to happen. Sorry about that. So what I decided was there's only two of them. They're very inexperienced, so I will start them out the way the game starts. Beginning quests, cast into the dungeon. Oh, and yeah, Avernum, the story of Avernum is there's a place underground, miles and miles underground, vast networks of caves, effectively the Underdark. You go to the Underdark, and you go to the Underdark because the Empire on the surface rules with an iron fist. They enact all these policies to kill all the monsters, get rid of all the dragons, make the surface humans only, humans and natural animals, and everyone who is a non-human species is killed, slaughtered, or sent into exile in Avernum. And then once all the giants are dead, all the dragons are gone, all the troglodytes are gone, all of the monsters are gone, it's just humans now. And now the Empire is like, well, I'm going to take all of the all the political prisoners, all of the dissenters, all the criminals. In some cases, it makes it explicit, the homosexuals and anyone who doesn't fit in, they all get sent into Avernum. And Avernum is, you get there via portal, that's one way, and there's no way out. So they get rid of everybody. It's fantasy Australia. So they send everybody down into the Underdark effectively. So your party comes out into this cave, into the Underdark, and you come out, and when you come out, you realize that all of these hundreds and hundreds of people that the Empire have been sending down here, they didn't just go down there and die. They went down there and they built a city, and they have a small kingdom here in the Underdark. And so that's where the game starts. And so Andrew and Kasumi, they made characters. Andrew is playing a human paladin, and Kasumi is playing a half-elf druid. We had a false start. Kasumi rolled a paladin, Andrew rolled a paladin, and they had a combat, and we effectively did a save and reload. Their first set, I had them go after some dire rats, and what happened was that Andrew was fine. He's like, okay, let's go out and we'll kill these rats and get a bounty. And Kasumi was, no, I don't want to hurt the rats. I will do everything in my power, give them food to try to make them go away. And me being an adult DM who has been doing this for a while, okay, so you feed the rats, you calm them down. They're no longer attacking you, but then they go back to their nest, and you're not completing your bounty. And so when you go back to the innkeeper, or when you go back to town and try to explain, oh, we took the mission and we fed the rats and then left them in their nest to continue to attack the road, the person who posted the bounty is like, what the hell? This is unacceptable. You didn't do anything. And so oh my goodness, my cat. And so they started over, and Kasumi ditched the paladin, kept the same name, kept the same history and story, and tweaked the stats, but then became a druid. So Andrew is playing a paladin, Kasumi is playing a druid, and that's where they're at right now. Their first actual missions, or their first actual game. So I gave them a little backstory. For whatever reason, they were sent into exile by the Empire. I gave them a short blurb about what the Empire was, how it was on the surface, how they control everything, and how they sent people into Avernum. And I have them appear in this cave. I just lifted the arrival caverns from Avernum wholesale, made a few tweaks, lowered the number of things in there to fight, because there's only 2 of them, and Dungeons & Dragons is much less forgiving. But the storyline of the arrival caves in Avernum, I just ran it verbatim. There were 4 people who were hiding from this group of thugs led by a guy named Legrand, and he had stolen the key, locked the door that led out of the arrival caverns, and was just trying to, and it was basically hold up, keeping away from everybody. And so they went through, they explored a bit. I put a dead body that had a long sword with it, and so Andrew got a long sword. They were both wearing leather armor because that's all what they were wearing. So Andrew now has his long sword, and he's using it two-handed. I explained how that works. Kasumi, being a druid, had chosen as her cantrips produce flame and druidcraft, and so she just used produce flame as her weapon. And so they went through. Had them fight. I had them fight three bandits. I used the bandit from where did I? Yeah, I used the bandit from the back of the monster manual. I just used those, three of them. It was a decent challenge. They all pretty much rolled very well, and so they were able to take them out with no problem. One of the bandits I had a club. No ranged weapons for these three. One of the bandits had a club, and Kasumi took the club. One of the other two bandits had short swords. And so the way it works is it's set up so that the party knows exactly what they're going up against. There's a hallway where the leader, Legrand, is standing on the opposite side of this fairly large set body of stagnant gross water, and he's on the other side, just sitting there on a chair, and he's waiting. Because all of the humans that come down into Avernum go through here into the arrival caverns and have to make their way out. And so he's standing there, and he says, "Oh, hey, how's it going?" He stands up. "Good to see you guys. I see that there's two of you. I see you're unarmed, and so I'm going to go let my friends down the hallway know that you guys are on your way, and we're going to kill you. When you try to come out, we're going to kill you, and if you don't come out, well, then you're just going to starve to death in the caves, and then we'll go out and see if you have any loot on you." And so he sets himself up so that the party knows exactly what's going on. And along the way, they run into four people, one woman and three others that are just, the three are catatonic. They're not really, they're in despair, complete despair, and the woman is trying to rally them together, but they're unarmed and they're civilians, they're commoners or whatever, and they don't know how to get past all of these bandits. And so the kids knew what was going on. They knew it was coming up. And so I had the bandits stationed. I had 6 of them, Legrand and 5 others. And I decided that Legrand and 2 of them would be down in the hall with the door, and then the other 3 are up ahead. The same kind of how it is in the arrival caverns in the video game. So they go in, they fight the first 3, they kill them, they take their weapons, and actually no, one of them they bring to 0 hit points, and Andrew asks beforehand if they killed him. And I said, well, you brought him to exactly 0 hit points. He falls, and normally for enemies, they die. But if you don't want him to die, I will treat it like a player and roll death saves, and you can try to stabilize him. And so the combat continued. This one was down and dying. He succeeded on a death save. And they used medicine skill. Kasumi's character has medicine, and stabilized this bandit. And then they dragged him back to the 4 other people, and they gave one of the short swords to the woman and said, "Hey, watch him. He's out. He won't wake up." And I told him that he's at 0 hit points. He's stable. He will not wake up for at least 8 hours, because that's basically how it is. After a long rest, you regain hit points, and he's at 0 hit points. So then they now have, and Andrew's first combat, I'm going to capture a prisoner. Excuse me. So they have this prisoner, and then they go, and they take a short rest. They recover some of the hit points they lost. And they do something that I regret letting them do. So druids prepare their spells, and they prepare the spells they can cast, and then they use their spell slots to cast their prepared spells. Druids can change their prepared spells with meditation. And so Kasumi had a set of spells that she wanted to have, but she wanted to use a different spell. And so they took a short rest so she could meditate to change her prepared spells, cast this new spell, and then meditate again to change it back. And so in the future, I think I'm going to set it up so that whenever they try to do that, they're going to start getting random encounters, because they pulled that several times where they weren't in any immediate danger, and they try to do that. They also relocated back behind a door where they first came in, so that they could defend themselves in case the other bandits came to look for them. So they take a short rest. They go back out. The battlefield has changed, that to demonstrate to them that it's a dynamic world. It's not a video game. It was an hour. They heard fighting. They assumed that their guys won, but they never came back. So they went to go look for them. They saw 2 dead guys, and one of them not there. So they dragged them back to take care of their dead guys. And so after a short rest and all of their stuff, it's been about an hour and a half. And so they get back, and Andrew's sneaking up, and they get to around the corner, and they hear them arguing about, we never should have come down here. You're an idiot. It's all your fault. And so he decides, okay, they're arguing, gonna ambush them, gonna run out and fight, and then Kasumi's character will come up behind and throw fireballs and stuff. And so they both rolled really well. Everything went fine. Took a little bit of damage, but it was fine. So they finish that encounter. They kill Legrand. They kill the bandits. They take the key. They unlock the door. They take the prisoner, and they take the four civilians, and they leave the Arrival Caverns. And then they come out into Fort Exile. In Avernum, they call it Fort Avernum, but I hate that name, so Fort Exile. So they come out in Fort Exile. They're greeted by the greeter. Greeter tells them to go talk to Tor and the Sage to get starting equipment and information. Kasumi's not super interested, but Andrew is excited. He goes over, and we have a little role-playing moment where he's getting information from the Sage. Then they go over to Tor to get supplies, and they get some food. They get I rule that they basically got most of their supplies from the bandits. In the video game, you get like a little bit of food and some coins. And so I basically let them get starting character, starting gear, 2 explorers packs, and let's see, 2 explorers packs and a handful of coins for the gear that they brought up with them from the bandits, because Tor needs supplies to give new arrivals. They meet a soldier named Varnus, and in the video game, he directs the players to go to Silvar to get your first quest, and so the same thing happened. Hey, go to Silvar, talk to the mayor. So Andrew doesn't do a lot of exploring. He had that little role-playing with the Sage, decides, hey, let's go to Silvar. So Silvar is about 7 miles west of Fort Exile. And so they head over to Silvar. I rolled for random encounters. No random encounter. They arrive in Silvar. And here's where I need to work on describing things in such a way that they can take initiative. Because I try to explain things to them and what there is available here. And then I ask, what do you do? And he had already forgotten. I think I might work on getting them to take notes. Part of the reason I'm doing this is, while going through these combats and calculating experience, they were both doing a fair amount of math. Simple math, obviously, small multiplication, little addition, subtraction, but it's very good fundamental practice. And so I would have them do all of their modifiers, do all their adding to their dice rolls, subtracting to their dice rolls, keeping track of their hit points, all of these things. It's a great tool. It's a great tool for children. And so I think I'm going to have them also write notes because they couldn't remember anything. So they get to this town, and now he doesn't know what to do. And so eventually I get him to go to a job board. He sees that there's some stuff on the job board, but doesn't take any of them. And so he's like, I'm gonna go. I think they spend some time just wandering the East Gallery in Avernum. Rolled some random encounters. One of the encounters in Avernum is a watering hole, where if you go to the watering hole, you get attacked by some lizards. And so I set up this watering hole, and they roll. Kasumi's character's druid rolls a good survival check, goes to, they come up on this place and they see these lizards, and they don't do anything. They just leave. And it's not like they see them and leave. They see them, and then they discuss these lizards for about 15 to 20 minutes, and they decide, we're not going to do anything, and we're just going to leave and keep exploring. And so I said to myself, okay, it's the same situation again. Kasumi does not want to fight any kind of animal. So I then set them up against a small patrol of 4 goblins and a Nephilim. And Nephilim are this race of cat people. And these would be there's a Nephilim fortress to the north of Silvarn and the city of Katra, which is further west. So this is a patrol. And so they kill the Nephilim. When the Nephilim dies, the goblins are like, screw this, we're out of here, because they're just following orders by this Nephilim, and they see these guys come up out of nowhere. These 2 people come up out of nowhere and just slaughter their guy, and he rolled really well. Like I think he crit like the first like he just came up, did a stealth check, which he has proficiency in, and he's a paladin, but he's still wearing leather armor, and he just sneak attacks this Nephilim and almost kills it outright. And so the Nephilim is at like 2 hit points and is trying to retreat, and then he kills him, and the goblins are like, well, crap, if they just did that, we're out of here. And so the goblins take off. They try to chase after them, but the goblins split in random directions and they run off. They're able to kill one of them. And so they had their first combat. And I asked what are they going to do, and they don't know what to do. And so I told them, I basically guided them. I said, hey, you were told to go to Silvar by the guy named Varnus to go talk to the mayor. You never did that. And Andrew's like, oh, okay, yeah, right. And so they go back to Silvar, talk to the mayor, get the quest to clear the sewers. And so I run through the sewers, lift the sewer map straight from the game. I used giant centipedes. In the game, there's cave worms, so I just reskinned the giant centipede monster in the back of the monster manual in the appendix, and just threw a bunch of centipedes at them. They did a little bit of exploring. There's the fast travel pedestal for the Tower of the Magi down there. He was interested in that, and they did a little exploration of that. There is a Nephilim shaman that is living in the sewers that is summoning these worms, and that is what started attacking the construction workers, and so that is what's happening here. So they explore, they fight a bunch of these worms that, again, they're centipedes. I think I'm going to work on that a bit. The centipede's challenge rating is 1/4, I think, which sounds great. Okay, there's 2 people, 1/4, send 3 at them. Holy crap. Those centipedes deal 3d6 poison damage if you fail your constitution save. So I am if I ever send them up against these worms again, I am going to bring that poison down. That's way too much poison damage at level 1. They got to level 2 at this point. So because there's only 2 of them, and I don't want them to die, I don't want them to lose their characters at 2nd level in their first mission. So instead of rolling for hit points, they're just getting max hit points each level. There's only 2 of them, and there's only ever going to be 2 of them, so I think that's fine. It'll help me balance combat encounters, because if I ever have more enemies than they are in a normal party, you can make up for that. With just those 2, and they're not super tactically minded, that's a death sentence. That's just too many attacks coming at them. So they're getting maximum hit points each level. Even so, 10 points of damage at level 2 on a failed Constitution save is beast. It's awful. It's too much. So did that. Kasumi, for her druid, chose a special circle, druid circle. She is a circle of the beast, so she has an animal companion, and she chose a giant rat as her animal companion. I don't remember what she named it, but yeah, the giant rat it's great, and like it deals a lot of damage because of the boost from being an animal companion. I think it does. It has a +6 to hit, and it deals 1d4 plus 4 points of damage. And if it is adjacent to an ally, within 5 feet of an ally while attacking, it has advantage on attack rolls. So it hits all the time. So her rat's fantastic. She doesn't even need to fight, basically. So they make their way to this shaman. They slaughter this shaman. I think Andrew rolled a crit and decapitated it, but not before it. I used either the cult priest or it had to have been the cult priest. I don't think it was the acolyte, but challenge rating 2, single enemy, challenge rating 2, fine, has 33 hit points. I think he dealt like 22 hit points in because he used Divine Smite. He dealt like 26 hit points worth of damage in one swing. And so eventually he crit, and he just wiped him out. It was able to get some spells off, cast Hold Person on Kasumi, all of these things. So it was a decent challenge. They didn't just kill him without suffering anything. And it drew in 6 of these centipedes. And this is where I realized, holy crap, these are way too powerful they're way too powerful in this kind of number for two second level characters. So the rat killed like 3 of them. They have like 4 hit points apiece. So I decided they were just going to attack the rat. If the rat dies, no big deal. Rat didn't die. So they do that. They get a handful of coins from the shaman. The shaman is wearing a necklace. I decided, trying to think of a good item to give them, and I decided on a necklace of prayer beads. And I rolled randomly for the beads. 4 beads. All 4 beads are bless, but you know what? It's fine. Bonus action, you can cast bless on all of them, and you can do it 4 times. That's great. They can basically be blessed every encounter unless I send too many. It may wind up too powerful, and it may be something that I will have to tone down or maybe take a couple of the beads away. But for right now, it fits with Avernum. There was a fanged necklace that would randomly bless you. So it's basically like that. And it'll help shore up the shortcomings of only having 2 players. So that's great. They come back up, they go meet the mayor, and again, pulling the video game out of it, they leave the sewer after fighting all of these worms and this Nephilim shaman, which Andrew says he takes the head as proof that they did it and what was happening, and go straight to the mayor's office. And so I explained to them that they come into the mayor's office covered in guts, smelling like the sewer, dragging this dripping bloody head into the mayor's office, and the mayor's reaction and all of that. And I don't know about Kasumi. Kasumi seemed she seemed distracted. She would, play around and wander away. But Andrew really liked that. He liked that there were consequences for the actions he would perform that you wouldn't have in a video game. So for a reward, they got a larger amount of money and a breastplate, an iron breastplate. And in Avernum, metal is very rare. So I gave him a metal breastplate. He had bought a shield, so he is now a paladin wearing decent armor with a shield. Can take hits and tank for the party basically. Calculated experience. They are each 50 experience away from level 3, and I told them that it was a good stopping point. And the next time we play will probably be tomorrow. We'll get them to level 3, and I'll have them level up, and we'll continue the game. I'm trying to think of things for them to do that are not the main story of Avernum, because the main story of Avernum, like I said, it involves fighting armies and armies of enemies. It is effectively a tactical RPG where all it is combat. There's role-playing stuff in it, but it's mostly combat, and it's combat that's too much for two characters. Maybe if they were both rogues and I could give them like invisibility or something like that and they could talk their way out of stuff, that's fine, but they're not super experienced. This is their first time playing Dungeons & Dragons, so I don't want to give them an NPC to rely on. I don't want to be a character in their game, because they need to learn how to do this by themselves. So I'm going to probably focus less on what Avernum had, where you would go into a fortress by yourself and clear a fortress out, and maybe work more on the small things that were implied to be happening that you never saw. So I'm going to have them probably taking contracts to guard supply caravans, or sending messages here and there, or maybe investigating missing people in areas that are not a Nephilim fortress, for example, or just reconnoitering the fortress, just exploring, finding it, seeing what their defenses are like on the outside, never actually going into it, because again, in Avernum, that fortress has like 50 enemies in it, and they're all hostile and they all fight, and I don't like that for two people. It doesn't feel believable, and especially because all they have are video games to go off of, I want it to be as believable as possible. I want them to feel adventurous and heroic, but I don't want them to feel invincible. I want them to be worried if there are that many people. I want them to be worried if there's like 5, right? There's only 2 of them. Of course, as they get better equipment and gain some levels and learn how to play, it'll be a lot easier. But yeah, that was their first Dungeons & Dragons game. Gonna play again, probably tomorrow. They seem to enjoy it. Kasumi seemed very distracted, but she says she had fun. Andrew very clearly had fun, and as soon as we were done, later that day he wanted to play more that day. I told him no, and he wanted to play today, which is the next day, and I told him no. And he took some time today to read through some of the player's handbook, and he was exploring the monster manual, and it's got his interest. So fantastic. Let's see, what else to say in the first campaign diary? I went out and I looked through some of my boxes, and I found my vinyl battle mat, and so I'll be using that next time. I was just kind of winging it with party positionings and things, but I'm going to start using the miniatures. I found a bunch of more dice, so that'll help out. And yeah, I decided to do this. I'm going to upload it to YouTube, obviously, but it's mostly for me, so I can go back and review it later, and then show the kids when a few sessions have gone by, and they can see how it started, and I'll give them access to each one as it becomes relevant. So that's it. Till next time. Later.